You don't see the cracks until the whole thing collapses. New York City, late October. Natalie Reed's apartment always smelled like fresh eucalyptus and linen. Clean, curated, calm, just like her life was supposed to be. She stood in front of the tall window in her Upper West Side apartment, holding a mug of chamomile tea like it might anchor her to the floor. Outside, Central Park's trees were a mess of orange and crimson, the kind of picturesque chaos that made tourists gasp and locals hurry past without a second glance. She wasn't really seeing the view. She was watching Ryan. In the reflection of the window, she could see him behind her, barefoot in navy joggers, shirtless, his head down as he typed something into his phone. His lips curled into a faint smile. Natalie turned slowly. Funny text? Ryan blinked, looking up. What? You smiled at your phone. He chuckled. Oh, just James sending a stupid meme about work. He placed the phone face down on the table and stretched. You're getting suspicious in your old age. Natalie smiled too, because that's what you do when someone you love says something strange. You brush it off, you laugh along. You don't lean in, you don't ask again. You tell yourself, he's tired, you're tired, don't make it a thing. But the truth? That smile, the one she caught in the glass, didn't look like something a meme would cause. Not on Ryan. He didn't laugh at memes. He barely understood them. 3 days earlier, Jenna Blake twirled a champagne flute between her fingers. They were seated in a private booth at Lucia's, a candlelit Italian place with hand-tossed pasta and overpriced wine. Jenna had always been dazzling, the kind of woman who walked into a room and turned it magnetic. Long caramel hair, white teeth, a laugh that made strangers lean closer. Have you picked a dress yet? Jenna asked, leaning in. Natalie hesitated. There's no dress yet. Jenna blinked. What do you mean? You and Ryan have been together forever. Didn't he say? He hasn't actually proposed. A beat passed. Jenna tilted her head. But the trip to Florence wasn't that the whole thing? The proposal trip? Natalie shrugged. I think he just wanted a vacation. Another beat. Jenna laughed, but there was a tightness in it. Well, don't wait forever, babe. Men need deadlines. Natalie smiled, but her heart tightened. Jenna had said something like that before. A year ago, too. Always gently, always under the guise of support. But always loaded, Monday, 9:12 a.m. Reed and Mercer Design Studio, Midtown Manhattan. Natalie's office was full of light and geometry. Angles and shadows, brass accents and glass tables. Every inch of it was hers, her taste, her rules, her peace. She stood at her drafting desk reviewing client mock-ups when Ava, her junior associate, knocked and stepped inside. Morning, Natalie, Ava said cheerfully. Quick note, Jenna dropped off a package for you. Natalie looked up. Jenna? Ava nodded, placing a black gift bag on the side table. Said it was a little something for Italy. Natalie forced a smile. Thanks. When Ava left, Natalie opened the bag. Inside was a delicate silk slip, champagne-colored, barely there, and a handwritten note on Jenna's familiar floral stationery. For your engagement night. He's going to lose his mind. Love you. G. Natalie stared at it for a beat too long. She folded the note carefully, placed it back in the bag, and tucked the whole thing into her bottom drawer. And then she sat very still for a moment. The words scratched at something deep in her. Not the gift. Jenna always had a flair for over-the-top gestures, but the timing. Jenna had been unusually insistent lately, about the trip, about Ryan, about everything. And when Natalie had mentioned Ryan smiling at a meme, Jenna had laughed a little too quickly, hadn't she? Natalie shook her head, brushing the thought away. Don't spiral. You're tired. She's your best friend. but the discomfort lingered like smoke. That evening, 7:48 p.m. home, Natalie stood at the sink, rinsing arugula in silence. Behind her, Ryan poured wine and leaned against the counter. "So, Jenna says you two are planning a spa day next week," Ryan said casually. Natalie blinked. "We are?" Ryan smirked. "She said you booked it, someplace in Soho. She even picked a massage package for you." Natalie turned off the water. "That's funny," she said, drying her hands, "because I never booked anything." A pause. Ryan tilted his head. "Maybe she meant she booked it for you." Maybe, but the word dropped like a stone in her chest. Why would Jenna tell Ryan something that didn't happen? And more importantly, why would he believe it so easily? She turned back to the arugula. Ryan didn't notice the stiffness in her shoulders. He was already scrolling through something on his phone again. And he smiled. Natalie didn't ask this time. She just watched him. And quietly, one part of her heart stepped back, as if giving itself space. Preparing. Waiting. Tuesday, 11:03 a.m., Reed and Mercer. Design Studio. The morning sunlight spilled across Natalie's office in long golden strips. She was supposed to be reviewing material samples for a client in Tribeca, but her focus was slipping, drifting, really, to places it hadn't gone in a while, like last winter. Like that night at the Madison, Ryan had thrown a surprise birthday party for her. Elegant, candlelit, flawless. Jenna was there, of course, dressed in a silver cocktail dress that clung to her curves like it had been sewn on. She'd arrived early, helped Ryan with the setup, charmed the bartender, made everything perfect. Natalie had thought she was just being Jenna. But there was a moment, a single, strange moment, that replayed in her mind now with uncomfortable clarity. She'd been looking for Ryan to cut the cake. The lights had dimmed, the room buzzing with voices and low music. And there they were, Jenna and Ryan, standing close, whispering about something at the bar. Jenna's hand had brushed his arm. Ryan had leaned in too far to hear her. And they had both laughed. Not the kind of laugh you share in front of a room full of people. The kind you share when you're trying not to be noticed. Natalie had shaken it off then. It's fine, she'd told herself. They're just close. But now, the memory felt sharp-edged. She reached for her phone and opened her photos, scrolled back to February, found the picture from that night. Jenna and Ryan, mid-laugh, her hand still on his sleeve. Natalie zoomed in slowly. Jenna wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at Ryan. And Ryan? He was looking back. Not like friends. That night, 10:17 p.m. Natalie's apartment. Natalie sat on the edge of her bed, the room lit only by the soft blue glow of her phone screen. She'd read the same email 3 times. Nothing stuck. Her heart was pounding quietly. A kind of silent panic. The kind that doesn't rush, doesn't shout, just settles in and starts rearranging your bones. Behind her, Ryan was brushing his teeth. He always whistled when he brushed. Tonight, it grated on her. She put the phone down and walked into the living room, sat in the dark. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there. And slowly, she realized something that made her feel strangely still. She already knew, not the details, not the how or when, but she knew. Somewhere deep in her gut, she had known for a long time. And tomorrow she'd stop pretending she didn't. Saturday, 5:41 p.m., Jenna's apartment, East Village. Natalie didn't plan to stop by. She'd been on her way home from a client consult when she remembered Jenna had borrowed one of her vintage sketchbooks, a limited edition moleskin from Milan she needed for a mood board presentation on Monday. She texted first. No answer. But Jenna had told her before. Anytime, babe. You know where the spare key is. So she'd gone up the stairs, found the key taped under the mailbox like always, let herself in, and then silence. The apartment was dim, sun leaking in from between the blinds in sleepy stripes. Natalie stepped inside, heels soft against the hardwood floor. Something felt off. There were 2 wine glasses on the coffee table, one still half full, a shirt thrown over the back of the couch, a pair of men's shoes by the door. Her heart began to thud. Don't jump to conclusions. She walked further in, her hand tightening around her purse strap, just in time to hear a laugh. A very familiar laugh. Ryan, and then Jenna's voice. Breathless, playful. Natalie stood frozen, halfway down the hall. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. She didn't have to open it. She already knew. But she did. She pushed the door open with 2 fingers, barely breathing. And there they were, tangled in sheets, skin on skin, his hand in, her hair, her lips on his chest. They didn't see her at first. She didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't gasp. She just watched, and when they finally noticed, when Jenna looked up and froze, when Ryan turned and swore under his breath, Natalie simply nodded once, like she'd just confirmed a theory. Then she turned and walked out. 18 p.m. Outside Jenna's, building the autumn air hit her like a slap, sharp and dry. Natalie walked fast, but not frantic. She wasn't crying. Her face was expressionless, eerily calm. Inside, something had shattered. Glass walls she hadn't even known were there. Trust, safety, time. She walked all the way to 2nd Avenue before she finally let herself breathe, and then she smiled, a small, bitter smile, the kind born not from rage, but from clarity. She was done pretending, done hoping, done playing nice. Now it was her turn. Sunday, 9:27 a.m. Natalie's apartment. The city was quiet. Natalie sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in an old sweatshirt, hands around a mug of black coffee gone cold. She hadn't slept. Not really. Just drifted in and out, her body too tired and her mind too loud. The apartment felt foreign, like it belonged to a different version of her. The Natalie who laughed too easily, who forgave too fast, who ignored what she didn't want to see. That Natalie was gone. She took a slow breath, reached for her phone, and opened Instagram. The first photo she saw was Jenna's, a close-up of a cappuccino and a croissant, tagged at a cute cafe downtown. Self-care Sunday. Natalie stared at it for a long time. Not out of pain. Not anymore. Out of clarity. She opened her Notes app, created a new file, Closure Project. She titled it, and started writing. Not about heartbreak. Not about betrayal. About strategy. Monday, 2:42 p.m. Reed and Mercer Design Studio. Natalie, Ava peeked in. Your 3 o'clock just rescheduled. Perfect, Natalie said, not looking up from her laptop. She was researching corporate PR firms. Specifically, ones connected to Ryan's new tech startup, which had just landed a soft feature in Tech Track Weekly. She found the PR contact, a woman named Tessa Vane, and made a note to reach out anonymously. She'd learned a lot in 7 years with Ryan. How he worked. How he thought. What scared him. What made him spiral. She wasn't going to destroy him. She was going to let him do it to himself. All she needed was a push. Wednesday, 5:15 p.m. Hotel Delancey Rooftop Lounge. Jenna was seated across from her, wearing oversized sunglasses and a silk scarf in her hair like some retro movie star. I'm so glad we're doing this, Jenna said, sipping a martini. I missed you. Natalie smiled softly. Me too, It wasn't a lie. She had missed Jenna, the version of her that existed before the betrayal, before the lies, before that apartment. "So, what's new?" Jenna asked. Natalie tilted her head. "Actually, I've been thinking about starting something of my own." Jenna lit up. "A firm?" "A brand," Natalie said. "And I might need help with some of the launch events. You know, contacts, guest lists, the kind of magic you do." Jenna grinned, flattered. "Say no more. I'm in." Natalie clinked her glass gently against Jenna's. Inside, she didn't feel victorious. Not yet, but she felt ready. Friday, 8:22 a.m., Reed and Mercer Design Studio. Natalie clicked send. The email was short, anonymous, precise. Subject, Re. Internal audit high. You might want to take a closer look at some of the IP ownership clauses in your most recent contract with Carter Insight. Best a friend, no signature, no trace, but enough to spark exactly what she needed. Doubt. Ryan had always been careless with legal details, assuming charisma could outmaneuver contracts. But Natalie had seen the drafts, knew the gray areas, and now someone else would see them. 2. The dominoes would fall slowly, but fall they would. Saturday, 11:07 a.m. Lux and Bloom Bridal Expo, Lower Manhattan. The event was crowded. Brides-to-be in silk blouses buzzed around with wedding planners and floral designers, sipping rosé and dreaming out loud. Jenna stood near a floral arch, holding a clipboard and smiling through her lashes. She was in her zone. Natalie approached, casually, sunglasses on, voice calm. "Hey." Jenna turned, surprised. "Oh my God, Nat, you came." "Of course," Natalie said. "Just wanted to see the queen in her kingdom." They hugged briefly. Natalie held on just long enough to slip something into Jenna's oversized tote, a slim, glossy envelope. Inside, an anonymous printout of a group chat screenshot from a bridal industry forum, a thread where multiple vendors, all burned by Jenna's bad behavior, were venting publicly. Delayed payments, ghosted meetings, canceled deposits. The kind of thread that could tank a reputation overnight if the right client saw it. Natalie wasn't going to send it. Not yet. But Jenna would see it. She'd wonder who knew, who was watching. The seed was enough. Monday, 4:01 p.m. Ryan's office. Midtown Ryan sat in his glass-walled corner suite, scrolling through an email chain with furrowed brows. Tessa Vane from PR was asking questions, hard ones, about their IP contracts and investor disclosures. He'd brushed it off at first, but now she was escalating, involving legal, CCing board members. Ryan stood up suddenly and paced, hands on hips. Something was off, and he hated not knowing what. Wednesday, 10:56 a.m. Natalie's apartment. Natalie stood in front of her closet. Crisp white shirt, tailored. Navy pants, hair slicked back, a touch of highlighter on her cheekbones. Gold watch, ticking with quiet authority. She wasn't dressing for war. She was dressing for precision. Today wasn't about revenge. Today was about setting the scene. Thursday, 3:20 p.m. The Glass House Rooftop Lounge, Tribeca. Natalie leaned over a small marble table, coffee untouched. Across from her sat Elena Ruiz, a lifestyle columnist at the Manhattan Echo. Elena was sharp, restless, the kind of journalist who smelled blood before anyone else even noticed a scratch. "I'm not asking you to write a takedown, Natalie," said calmly. "Just a profile, a rising female designer, a launch, and..." She slid a second folder across the table. Some context. Elena peeked inside. Eyebrows lifted. Emails, screenshots, financial projections, industry warnings. Social media complaints, all tied to Jenna Blake and Ryan Carter. "I don't want credit," Natalie added. "I want the truth where people can see it." Elena smirked. You realize this could bury them, right? Natalie smiled gently. I'm just letting sunlight. Friday, 9:15 a.m., Jenna's office, West Village, an intern burst in. Jenna? You might want to see this. He handed her a tablet, screen glowing with an article titled Smoke and Mirrors, the designer behind NR Studio, and the scandals that sparked a brand. Her face drained. Half the article praised Natalie's resilience. The other half, sourced, footnoted, lawyer-reviewed, exposed Jenna and Ryan's manipulation, lying, and financial misconduct. Comments flooded in. Sponsors started pulling out. A major wedding venue tagged the article and issued a public statement. We do not work with Blake Events. Jenna's hands shook. She opened her phone. 30 unread messages. One from Ryan. WTF, did you do? I'm getting heat from the board. Friday, 11:40 a.m., Ryan's office. Midtown Ryan's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered with a bark. Ryan. Carter speaking. A pause. Mr. Carter? Came the voice of an SEC investigator, cold and clipped. We have questions regarding your Q2 disclosures. You'll want to speak with your counsel. The line went dead. Ryan sat motionless. Friday, 6:18 p.m. Natalie's apartment, quiet before the storm. Natalie sat in the dark, watching the city, through floor-to-ceiling windows. They were unraveling, not because she shouted, not because she fought dirty, because she waited, because she knew their weaknesses better than they did, and because when the truth is planted carefully, it grows. Tomorrow was her gallery launch, and they would walk in, already crumbling. Saturday, 6:52 p.m., Gallery 417, Chelsea. The night was cool, the kind of crisp that hinted at early autumn, where every breath felt sharper, more deliberate. Inside Gallery 417, the atmosphere was electric, not chaotic, but dense with expectation. Soft instrumental music played through hidden speakers. Spotlights warmed white walls. Sculptures, installations, and architectural sketches were spaced with curated precision. Everything under the banner of NR Studio. Natalie Reed stood at the center of it all. Her tailored black suit was sharp enough to cut glass. A subtle diamond chain glimmered at her collarbone, hair twisted into a sleek knot. No extravagance, just elegance. Just power, polished into quiet steel. She scanned the room like a queen watching the first guests arrive at court. Her name was on every brochure. Her brand hovered above the entrance in backlit gold. But it wasn't vanity. It was vindication. 3. Years ago, she'd stood in the shadows of other people's success, applauding, supporting, pretending. Now the applause was for her, and tonight it would echo. 3 p.m. guests trickled in. Critics, buyers, editors, friends. Journalists whispered. In corners, 2 podcasters live-streamed the sculpture section. Her assistant, Layla, handed out press packets with controlled enthusiasm. Architect from the Post just arrived, Layla murmured, touching Natalie's shoulder lightly. Good, Natalie replied, her voice smooth as velvet. Make sure. She sees fracture last. Fracture was the centerpiece. 7 shards of glass suspended midair, seemingly floating. Each piece had been shattered, then reassembled with gold lacquer in the style of kintsugi, the Japanese art of honoring brokenness. It told the story without needing to tell it. 6 p.m. Natalie was answering a question from a French gallery. Director when the shift happened. She felt it before she saw it. The shift in air. The whisper ripple. She turned her head slowly. There they were, Ryan Carter. Jenna Blake. They looked like they'd walked out of an ad. Ryan in a deep navy suit. Jenna in a crimson sheath dress that screamed, "See me." He wore his guilt under his collar. She wore denial as perfume. They didn't belong, not here, Not anymore. But Natalie had counted on them showing up. She had planned for it. 31. PM Layla appeared at her side. Should I? Natalie shook her head. Let them roam. Let them watch. The scene. Press wouldn't miss this. The ex-fiancé and the ex-best friend showing up to the woman they betrayed, smiling like the flashbulbs would erase the past. Natalie turned back to the gallery director and finished her conversation, as if nothing had happened. But inside, she was ready. 3. PM Ryan made his way toward the drinks table. Jenna clung to him just a little too tight. He was scanning the room, like he expected to recognize someone who could rescue him. Natalie watched from across the room, composed. She could have approached right then, confronted them, made a scene, but that would have given them too much dignity. No. Natalie believed in timing, in choreography, in the subtle architecture of downfall. And this was only the opening movement. The gallery lights dimmed again, this time not for ambiance, but for intention. A subtle tone hummed through the speakers. Not music, a frequency. Something clean, anticipatory. On the main wall, a projection screen unfolded in silence. Natalie stood by the sculpture titled Fracture, still and centered. Conversations trailed off. Attention shifted, phones lowered. The crowd leaned in, unconsciously, as the first image appeared. A black screen, then words, white and simple. This is not a confession. This is clarity. Natalie stepped into the spotlight. Her voice was clear. Collected. You've seen my work tonight. You've seen the pieces. What you haven't seen is how they broke. A murmur. Before NR Studio existed, I was another name in someone else's email thread. A silent contributor. A +1. A shadow on a guest list. The screen flicked to life again, this time showing a redacted screenshot of a presentation deck. A logo in the corner, Carter Insight. There was no need to say Ryan's name. The audience could read between the lines. The fracture didn't happen all at once. It cracked slowly, in whispers, in glances, in the kind of laughter that doesn't belong to friends. Another slide. Photos blurred and faded, recognizable to those who knew. Natalie continued, not once looking toward Ryan or Jenna. There are people here tonight who tried to bury me, who took the pieces of me and tried to repurpose them as their own. But I learned something. She walked to the center of the room now, the crowd parting like water. If someone shows you who they are, don't try to repaint it. Frame it, exhibit it. Let the world see. Her gaze swept the room, but briefly, it stopped on them. Jenna's lips parted as if to speak. Ryan's knuckles were white around his glass. Natalie smiled, softly, not with cruelty, with freedom. And when you survive betrayal, you don't have to seek revenge. A pause. You become the thing they can't silence. Applause didn't erupt. It rose, like a wave held in the lungs too long. Natalie stepped back. The projection faded. The room remained hushed, reverent. 21 p.m. Private reception room. Natalie stood alone by a tray of untouched champagne. She knew they'd come. And they did. Jenna entered first, fury barely tucked behind her trembling lips. That was low. You didn't have to humiliate us in front of the entire industry. Natalie turned, slow and exact. I didn't use your name. Ryan followed, looking more broken than angry. Why would you do this? After everything we've been through? Natalie's eyes met his, steady. You mean after 7 years of me believing you? After I saw your smile in the reflection of my window and lied to myself about what it meant? Silence. After I stood beside Jenna while she toasted to my future, knowing she was sleeping with it? Jenna inhaled sharply. Natalie stepped forward, close enough that her words were only for them. You both taught me something valuable. That silence isn't strength. That nice isn't a virtue. That truth, when spoken clearly, doesn't need volume. She handed Ryan a folded paper. It was a copy of the anonymous SEC report. To Jenna, a smaller envelope. The forum screenshots. I didn't ruin you, Natalie said. You built the matchstick tower. I just stepped away before it burned. They stood stunned, wordless. Then she added softly, Now get out of my gallery. 6 weeks later. The article had gone viral. Not just in Manhattan, but across every major design outlet from coast to coast. Natalie Reed became a symbol, not of scandal, but of self-reclamation. Podcasts called her the architect of her own justice. Brands reached out, partnerships formed. NR Studio tripled in exposure and revenue. Ryan resigned from his company. Jenna's brand quietly shuttered. She never responded to the screenshots. She didn't have to. The silence said enough. Sunday, 10:12 a.m., Central Park. Natalie sat on a bench, coffee in hand, sketchpad in her lap. No press, no drama. Just her and the morning. A child ran past. A breeze tugged at her coat. She smiled. Not bitterly. Not victoriously. Just freely. What they took from her she rebuilt. Not out of spite, but from stillness. From patience. From truth. She closed her sketchbook. Stood and walked forward. Not to look back. But because finally, she had nothing left to prove.